everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren. In this video, I'm going to be making over these 2 nightstands. I got a really great deal on them, so I'm going to attempt to flip them in just one day, or really just in a few hours, to show you that you don't need a ton of time to make money flipping furniture. We'll get these listed on Facebook Marketplace once I get them all done and see how much profit we can make in just a few hours time. So like I said, I got a killer deal on these nightstands, and nightstands are pretty hard to come by, especially ones that are in nice shape and large like this. Whenever I can, I hop on them so quick because not only are they hard to, get your hands on as a flipper, but also they're super high in desirability, and they will also go quick when I am finished with them, and I put them on Facebook Marketplace. So I got these for $50. It was actually a part of a larger set, but I asked, because what's the harm in asking, if she would separate the nightstands from the other 2 pieces. She already had the whole set priced pretty low, but I just wasn't really in the market for the entire set. I didn't really love the larger armoire piece that was with it, and so I just said, hey, will you split them up? She said, I'll take $75 for the nightstands, and I didn't respond for a couple of hours, and then she said, if you can come and pick them up today, I will do $50. So you bet I got in that car and I raced out there and picked them up for just $50, and they are in really great condition. There's a few scratches on the tops, but we're gonna take care of that. The first thing that I'm gonna go ahead and do is remove this hardware because it is very outdated. I think that overall they're not the most outdated pieces. The shape is really great, but the hardware is just cheap looking. So we're gonna get rid of it and replace it once it's time. I will definitely be filling in those hardware holes because they're about maybe an inch apart or so, and the hardware that I'm going to be replacing it with is a little bit wider than that. So we'll be filling in those hardware holes a little bit later, but our next step is to clean these pieces. Removing the hardware took me less than 5 minutes to do, so cleaning the pieces is the next step because we want to start with a clean slate. A lot of the times, people ask me that I'm sanding next. Why am I cleaning before I'm sanding? Which is just then going to, require me to wipe back the dust again. Well, the reason is because 1, I like to start with a clean slate, and 2, it's not gonna be great for me to take my sander and just start sanding all of the oils and things like that down into the surface. So in my opinion, taking a couple of minutes and cleaning to make sure that we're not just grinding down those dirty spots into the wood finish is the best way to do it. You can do it however you want, but that is the way that I have found is the best. And then your later adhesion of your primer and your paint is going to be much, much better because you took the extra step to clean first. I am using some simple green, and this is a degreasing cleaner that works for flipping furniture and cleaning off the surface. I'm also going to go ahead and take the drawers out so we can clean on the insides as well. Oh no, it looks like I may have found something. I don't know what it is. You never know what you're gonna find, I swear. Looks like we got a panty drawer. We got some undies. I'm just gonna toss these. But seriously, you never know what you're gonna find in the inside of pieces of furniture, so you always gotta be on the lookout. I went ahead and posted up the drawers on the tops of the nightstands just so that I could easily put the Bondo on. Now these drawers, sometimes drawers are funky and you can't easily set them on their backs, and this one is like that. This has like this little brown thing that prevents you from setting it on its bottom and then it like not tipping over. So this is why I opted to do that, which also will probably play a part in how I go about spraying them, because if I put them on the ground, then they're gonna tip over. So I'll probably end up spraying them on the inside, like when I have them all in there, and it's fine because they're flush, so that'll work. And I'll show you how exactly I do that a little later on. But Bondo is next, because after that will be scuff sanding. We're kind of moving and grooving on this flip already. The cleaning took me 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. So total, we're in around 20 minutes. Not too bad at all. I'm gonna be using this Wood Restore putty, and this is going to fill in all of the hardware holes. So I'm just gonna take a little bit out of the can and put it on my cardboard piece here. Probably do enough to cover both nightstands. I think I can get it on there quick enough to where it's not gonna dry out. I think that'll be enough for both. And then I will apply the cream hardener. This is the substance that's going to make everything harden up after just about 1.5 to 2 minutes. So I'm just gonna squeeze that onto the cardboard as well, maybe. Hopefully. Sometimes the cream hardener runs out a little bit before the actual part in the can, so you kind of gotta get every drop out. I'm almost done with that can anyway, so that's probably why. So then I'm just going to mix it up, make sure it's all one consistency, one color. In order to actually put it onto the holes, I'll just spread it on like that. Sometimes I get asked if I apply the Bondo to the back as well, and I don't. I just leave the holes open in the back. Generally, people aren't gonna be like, oh, there's extra holes right there. So I just don't worry about that, and it's not gonna affect the quality of the piece at all. Okay, both nightstands, drawers, hardware holes are all filled in, and this would also be the time that I would go and make sure that all of my dents and dings are filled throughout the entire nightstands if there's more. But in my case, there's really not. Like I said, these are in pretty nice condition. The only damage is kind of on the tops, but I'm gonna be doing something else on the tops, and I'm gonna be sanding back the finish there. So all of those scratches will be sanded back, no problem. And there's really no other dents or dings that need to be filled in with Bondo and sanded back later. So we're gonna let this harden up and then we'll start to sand. I'm gonna go ahead and tackle the tops now. So I'm gonna start out with a carbide scraper. This is it has a blade on here that's pretty sharp, and what you do is you go in the direction of the wood grain and you just lightly scrape off the finish. And this is gonna cut down on some sanding time. There's so many different ways to strip. I've used acetone before. I just went straight into sanding before. I've used my carbide scraper before. I've used other strippers before. So it really just depends on like what I'm feeling for this specific project. I love switching it up for you guys so that you know there's different methods, but whatever you feel most comfortable doing is totally okay. There's really no right or wrong. I'm 99.9% sure that this is veneer, so I'm gonna be super careful even with the carbide scraper. but because it's like all going in different directions, like I just know that it's veneer, honestly. I don't even think I need to say 99.9%. I should just say I'm 100% sure that this is veneer. I'm gonna need to be careful with my carbide scraper, but I'm also going to need to be careful with my sander as well. But hopefully this can start to take off some of the finish so I don't have to sand quite as much. All right, it's working okay. I don't know, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and grab my sander out and sand back the finish instead of doing this. It's kind of tiring, honestly. So let's get out the sander. I sanded the tops down and they look good overall. This one does have a few scratches on it, so I'm a little bit nervous that it's going to show through a little bit worse than I hoped when I stain it. So then I'm kind of leaning toward just painting it anyway, even though I really did want to do the stained top because this veneer is pretty neat. I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to, but I'm gonna move on and I'll make that decision next after I do this next step. It's scuff sanding. So I'm gonna be using 180 grit sandpaper to do some scuff sanding. While I'm scuff sanding, I will also be sanding back the Bondo as well, smoothing that out on the hardware holes so that we can move on to the next step, which will be priming. All right, I got all of the dust wiped back on these and the drawers, but unfortunately, I just don't think that I'm going to be able to stain the tops. This veneer is very, very thin, and while I didn't bust through it anywhere, there are still the markings of them being scratched. It's very smooth, but it's just visible, and so I don't want to have like 10 or 12 scratches on the top. If I stain it, those will still be very visible, and I don't think that that's a great look. So I am gonna make the executive decision to go ahead and prime and paint the entire pieces, which again, I was kind of going back and forth with anyway. So I was fine doing either one. I'm kind of bummed because the veneer is really pretty. But again, we just gotta count the losses. And I honestly don't think that staining the tops versus painting the entire piece is going to change the amount of money that I can get out of these. Painting them and doing them all the same will actually take less time. So I think I'm kind of gonna be getting more profit for the less time that I'm putting into these. Sanding the tops took about 20 minutes, and then the scuff sanding portion was probably around like 20 to 25 minutes. So next up, I'm gonna tape off just the inside drawer slides so that the primer doesn't get on there. What I'm planning to do is prime without the drawers in so that we can get these little lips, and then I'll put the drawers in and spray primer on those and then let that dry and kind of do that process again for the paint. So let's tape up some places. I've got my spray gun already loaded up with primer. I'm using the Gray Bin Advanced Primer, which is water-based, but it's going to help seal in the top because that's now raw wood. So it's just gonna help seal that in, make sure there's no tannins that are gonna come through to my paint, and then also help the paint adhere as well. So I'm gonna put it with my Wagner Flexio 5000 that I've got sitting on the ground over here, mask up, test out my spray pattern, and go to town on spraying these. I always like to put my nightstands back to back whenever I'm spraying them. I just feel like that mitigates the amount of paint that gets on the back side of them. And then it also just kind of makes it as like essentially one big piece with 4 sides, well 5 sides including the top. And then it just makes it a little bit quicker. It's gonna be a little bit tricky to see on camera, but my primer is kind of making some areas that maybe need a little bit more attention more visible. Sometimes that will happen with your primer, is like maybe you didn't see different things that could have been filled in or could have been addressed before. And what that is like there's just some cracking in the finish. Like, I don't know, I think it's like more wood graining and things like that. And so I am going to be filling it in and then sanding it smooth before my next coat of primer. That way we have a really smooth surface. I think ultimately the dark color that I'm gonna use on these would kind of mask those, but I wanna try and just fill in as much as I can to make it the most invisible as possible. So the product that I'm gonna use for this, and you could use other products too, like watered down wood filler or the glazing spot putty by Bondo. I'm gonna use the Dixie Mud in white, just because I have it on hand and it's pretty easy to spread. So it's gonna really get into those cracks pretty well. And then since I'm not putting it on very thick, it will dry pretty quick, and then I can sand again before we move on to coat number 2 of primer. Okay, I got the second coat of primer on these after I sanded the cracks out, and it really does look a lot better now. Now I am going to take off the tape that I taped onto the middle bars, and that way I can slide the drawers in so that I can then do the primer on the drawers. Should be dry enough to move. I'm just gonna place them like this. I did go ahead and wrap the drawers with some brown paper. That way I'm not gonna be getting any paint on the insides of the drawers or the sides of the drawers. I'm just gonna go ahead and insert these in. Okay, so I'm gonna leave them out just a hair so that I'm able to spray around the edges, and we'll do a couple coats on the drawers just like we did the bodies. Primer on the drawers is dry, and so I am going to add hardware holes so that just in case anything, you know, gets scratched or anything like that, it's on the primer and not on my paint, my fresh paint. So with these hardware holes, I am going to be using this hardware jig. I've got it to the appropriate setting to go about 2.5 inches apart. But now I need to figure out where the middle of my section is here and also the middle of the drawer this way. So what I like to do is measure, and it looks like it's about 4 3/4 inches. So that would be 2 3/8 inches down. That's gonna be how far our top thing is gonna be. And then this direction is 10 1/4, so that's gonna be 5 1/8 to be right in the middle. And then I'll be setting this here to be 2 3/8. So that is gonna be exactly where I drill my hole. So the drawers are skinnier up top and a little bit thicker down below. So I'm gonna have to adjust my hardware jig just a little bit. That's why I went ahead and did all of the top drawers first. And now I can adjust this and do the bottom 2 drawers on each side. So I just need to make sure that I've got the right measurement here. Okay, they're about 6 inches. Just about 6 inches, a little bit more than 6 inches. So I am gonna put my line at 3 and like a 1/16 or so, like that. So then that means that when I put it on my drawer, this is really nice because it just sits right on the drawer, and then you can line it up and it's gonna be level with the drawer. So as long as your drawer is level and you're holding it in place, then your holes should also be level. The only thing that I'm gonna have to do for sure is measure how wide the drawer is, which is 21 3/8 inches. So that means it's going to be about, math is math, so I just gotta think about this. I think it's gonna be like 10 and, oh, this is hard. 10 3/4 or 10 13/16. Honestly, I think that's what it is. Maybe not 13. Let's see, if I had 10, it would be 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. I think it's 10 5/8 is what it is. All right, 10 11/16. That is such a random measurement. Let's see that. They are ready to be painted now. I have been having really good luck over the past several months with blue nightstands on their own. So I am going to stick with what is working. I am trying to sell a lot of furniture here and not hold on to pieces lately. So I think I already know that blue sells really well with this style and size of nightstands. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I am gonna be using the color Nautical from Dixie Belle's Silk line. It is a nice kind of navy blue, maybe a little bit of a tinge of purple undertone, but overall a pretty dark blue. So we're gonna dump that into my Wagner spray gun and get some paint on these guys. All right, coat number 1 is dry, so I am gonna take a 220 grit sandpaper on this sanding block and just smooth everything out really nicely, so that way the second coat can go on and we won't have any roughness. Although I may not show this step every single time, I do usually do this on every single piece. It's just a way that everything will be smoothed out and you'll get a really flawless, buttery finish. We've come to the last step of getting this hardware on. I think I may have already showed you, but if not, this is the hardware that I have chosen. It is 2.5 inch holes on the back, and I think that this is just going to be really pretty on this blue. It's kind of a, I think I would call it like a champagne bronze color. It's a little bit on the more coppery side than just like a regular bronze. So I am excited to get this on here because I think it's really gonna pop nice against the blue. I'm also going to need to take off the paper and the tape. All right, I am discovering that this hardware, I thought I had 8 of these, but now I just pulled out one of these and these do not match. So now I've got to figure out how many of each I have. Let's see, I have 2 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No. Oh crap. It's not the end of the world, but This always happens to me where I just think that these flips are gonna go so quick. And I mean, technically I'm done and I just am gonna need to order some hardware, but so frustrating. Okay, well, now I've gotta just decide, I guess, if I am going to go with the champagne bronze or if I'm gonna go with the, I guess this would be like antique brass or something. Which one? I don't think I could go wrong with either. I was ultimately, or like originally going to do this champagne bronze, champagne brass, whatever color it is. So I think I'm gonna stick with this one. I'm just gonna go place an Amazon order and it should come by tomorrow. Ah, buzzkill. I wanted to get these listed today. Ah. Next day delivery saves the day again. I actually ended up going on Amazon when I said I was going to, and I ordered these, but I ended up having to go with a different brand because the brand that I had discontinued that specific size, the 2.5 inch. And since I already had made my hardware holes, I didn't want to have to fill them in and like do that all over again. So luckily I found a different brand that had the 2.5 inch, and then at that point I didn't even care what color because I was gonna be, you know, ordering brand new ones anyway. So we ended up with the antique brass ones. Those are the ones that I am going to install onto this piece, and it's gonna be pretty quick, and then we'll be able to get these listed on Facebook Marketplace. Okay, all of the hardware is on and it is looking super nice. I actually think that it was a happy accident that that hardware originally did not work out because I do like the darker hardware on this set. I do think that the other hardware would have been totally okay, but ultimately this was the right choice and I'm glad that I went with the darker antique brass. Let's take a look back at what these used to look like. I actually was trying to remember in my head and they were brown, they were ugly, not gonna lie. The hardware was definitely something else. It was so outdated, and so we gave these a whole new life by giving them a new coat of paint. I think this blue is super on trend right now. I have sold 3 other sets of nightstands around this same size in about this same color, and I have had absolutely no issues selling them. So I'm super excited to get these listed on Facebook Marketplace. I can't remember where I left off on telling you guys the amount of time that different things were taking, but if I remember correctly, I had already gone over the scuff sanding and the sanding the tops. The sanding the tops took about 20 minutes. The scuff sanding was around 25 minutes. The primer took me about 25 minutes in total. That's for both coats, sanding in between, removing the drawers, wrapping the drawers. All of those things were definitely taken into consideration, but still did not take very long at all. And then drilling the hardware holes did take me about 15 minutes to get them all set just right, which really is not a very long time because of the way that they look now. Like, it's totally worth taking that 15 to 20 minutes. And obviously it might take you longer with different styles of drawers. These were flat, so they were pretty easy. And then paint coat 1 took about 10 minutes, and then paint coat 2 took about 20 minutes. And again, that includes taking out the drawers and all of that I had to do on this set, just to make sure that I was able to paint everything for full coverage. And then last but not least, of course, we're not taking into account the time that it took the hardware to come and all of the dry time, but it took me about 5 minutes to install that new hardware right here. So I am in at a total of, I believe, I need to do the math actually. I did the math, 50, wait, okay, 25, 45, 65, 70, so an hour and 10, an hour and 35, an hour and 40, 50, an hour and 60, so 2 hours, 25. Okay, so that in all total took me 2 hours and 25 minutes. Harrison, correct me on screen if I did not do that quick math correctly, but either way, it's within around 2.5 hours of work time for a set of nightstands. Do you have 2.5 hours over the course of a couple of days even, so that you can be making money by flipping furniture? These cost me just $50 and I'm planning to list them for $500. I may take a bit less, but I want to start high because I continue to test my market, see what people are willing to pay. In the past, I've gotten anywhere from $425 up to $460, so might as well shoot for the moon and try to get 500 out of them so that we can 10 times our money. I would say that I spent around $50 in materials on these two nightstands, including the hardware, which was about half of that cost. I already had the primer, which has already paid for itself in my opinion, but I used probably about $10 of primer, a few dollars worth of paint, things like that. All of that is taken into account and I'm in around $50. So with the cost of the nightstands, I'm in around $100, which can give me about $400 worth of profit if I sell them at the full asking price of $500. I'm super excited to get these listed. As I mentioned, let me know what you think I should be selling these for, but I will update you ASAP because I have a really good feeling about these nightstands that they are going to just go super quick. I have more information down below about my courses. They are on a 50% off sale for this spring. This spring is seriously the best time to start flipping furniture. You need to earn a little bit of extra cash, then this is your sign. Here is the perfect time. I have a beginner course and I have a sprayer course. It all comes in a bundle and it is 50% off. So don't miss out. I would love to see you over there. Let me know down below also if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will be back next Thursday with another flip and I'll see you on the flip side. So surprisingly, I haven't had a ton of interest on these like I thought I would. So about 5 days into having them listed at $500, I lowered them to $470 and it still took a few days, but I have a few people interested and someone's coming right now to come and check them out. So hopefully they love them and go home with them. I went down to $450. I honestly just wanted them out of here and that's still a pretty great profit. I believe it's gonna be somewhere around $350 for that profit if I remember doing the numbers right. So I'm gonna get these wrapped up for her and then load them up. Always list high, so you have that wiggle room to come down a little bit and then you'll be good to go. All right, sold and loaded. That is the end of the video.